Hello, I'm Allison Haunss, and thank you for joining us for this special edition of the Working Woman Report. As we all grapple with life under quarantine, many of us are looking for answers, any little bit of information that can help us figure out a way through these unprecedented times. I hope that is what we can do for you today. Normally, here on the Working Woman Report, we like to celebrate the successes of extraordinary women in business, the arts, finance, and the nonprofit world. We will continue to do that, but we also hope to be a real source of information during this time, which brings me to our first guest, Karen Cahn, founder of Ifundwomen, a crowdfunding platform that helps female-founded startups get off the ground. I spoke with Karen about what resources are available to small business owners right now, as in immediately, and she had plenty of great information to share.
For many, the PPP has not been everything it was promised. And one person who can speak about this firsthand is CEO, founder of Ifundwomen, Karen Cahn, who knows firsthand how tough the process can be. Karen, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I am happy to speak on behalf of the 13 million women-owned businesses in this country. 40% of all businesses in this country are owned by women, and I can guarantee you that 40% of the PPP money did not go to women-owned businesses. So the process was arduous, even for the people who got the money. So the first tranche of money was $348 billion, which went in about 16 days, most of which went to companies that were out of the range of those who could apply, companies that had over 500 employees. Some were public companies. Some, like Shake Shack, have given it back, but why were they applying in the first place? And really, most of the small businesses on Main Street who applied did not get. And so that's why another tranche of money, $320 billion, was just announced. And so hopefully more of that money will go to the small businesses that really are suffering.
Well, tell us firsthand about Ifundwomen. What is Ifundwomen? And then I want to hear about your experience about applying.
Yeah. So Ifundwomen is a startup funding platform providing access to immediate cash to help you save, launch, or grow your business through crowdfunding and through our brokered grants product, which we just launched just in time for COVID, where large institutions and wealthy individuals are deploying grants to Main Street entrepreneurs through our platform. So if you are watching this and you are a small business and you did not get your PPP, absolutely come to Ifundwomen and apply for a grant, because we are giving out grants truly almost every day from brands like Visa, Caress, Adidas. There are so many more coming down the line, and they're sizable grants. So we consider ourselves the PPP right now. It's the fastest way to raise cash to save your business. We also have an ed tech platform. It's a fintech on one side where you can raise capital and get grants. The other side is an ed tech platform where you can learn all the things that you need to know about running a startup. Everything from how and why to set up your Google Analytics, to how to do Facebook retargeting ads, to, of course, how to crowdfund or how to raise an equity round, how to apply for a loan. So we teach private courses through Zoom or semi-private classes on all of the topics that entrepreneurs need to know about.
Specifically, what is happening with women business owners right now?
97% of venture capital dollars go to men. When women start businesses here in this country to the tune of 1,800 net new businesses a day, we start with 50% less working capital than our male counterparts. We get lower loan amounts at higher loan rates. Women are just generally taken advantage of from top to bottom of our financial services system, women and people of color. We believe at Ifundwomen, we know that the algorithms are inherently broken from VC on through the banks. And so we're here to rewrite the code, because what we know and what the research is telling us, BCG, for example, Boston Consulting Group, recently did a study that said for every $1 invested in a women-owned business, we're returning double what a male-owned business is returning. So investing in women is a better bet. It's a better investment. It's just that we are not part of the historical algorithm of a unicorn, somebody that's created a unicorn company that's exited for $1 billion or gone public, right? Those people are named Steve, Larry, Sergey, Elon, Mark. There's not a lot of Karens that have done that. And so pattern matching technology.
So we can say people can certainly apply for the PPP, but if we're talking about our audience, women, a number of women of color here in the tri-state area, in New York, in the 5 boroughs, who need help, they can come to you and get help.
Absolutely. So first thing is everybody should apply for a PPP. Here's who can apply. You can be a business, a nonprofit, a sole proprietor, a 1099 contractor. You know, they're not giving as much to the company that they're giving more to the C Corps, the S Corps, and the LLCs. Just is what it is. But sole proprietors are getting money. So I would say first thing is make sure you apply. It cannot hurt to apply, and it's not hard to apply. Don't expect a response, but you might as well apply. After you do that, you come to Ifundwomen and you attend a workshop, or you sign up for coaching, or you start crowdfunding right away. Because if you start crowdfunding right away and you talk to a coach, we have free 15-minute calls. We'll link somewhere, hopefully, where people can get on a free call with a coach, and we'll instruct you on how to do it. But essentially, it's setting up a crowdfunding page and asking your community for help. If there's any time to do that, it's right now. I can tell you that the restaurants in my neighborhood, my hair lady, my nail salon, all of my Pilates lady, all of my essential services, I'm getting them to crowdfund because their clientele want them to be in business. I want my nail salon to be in business. I want my Pilates studio to be in business. Everybody is willing to help, even if it's $20, $30, $50, whatever people can afford to do. They're doing it. And it's interesting because crowdfunding really was born out of the 2008 recession. And we're seeing it booming now. And if you're transparent in why you're doing it, in order to save your business, people are going to respect you and help you. So I would say, if you are struggling, run, don't walk to ifundwomen.com, start a campaign, and just start doing it.
Well, thank you so much. We love you so much. And we will talk to you soon.
And we will have a link on our website, workingwomanreport.com, that will take you directly to the scheduling page for ifundwomen.com, and you can schedule a 15-minute consultation with the team to determine if crowdfunding is right for you and a winning strategy, and they'll also provide you with the next steps you need to make your campaign live. Well, next up, I want to introduce you to an amazing emergency room physician here in New York City who works as a per diem doctor. And that means he goes around from hospital to hospital here in the New York City area. So he has been on the front lines of this pandemic. He's also been chronicling his days on his Instagram account, Monsoon Diaries. Here is Dr. Calvin Soon.
Dr. Calvin Soon is on the front lines of this pandemic. You have been documenting all of your days. Where are you today? How are you doing?
Still alive. That's what counts. I am everywhere in New York City and nowhere at the same time. I am per diem, so I work at the majority, if not all, the hospital systems in New York at this point. And I choose whenever and wherever I want to work. So it could be 5 minutes from now, I might get called in for a shift, and it's up to me to decide whether to go in or give myself a day off.
How would you describe what you're seeing at this point?
I think we're seeing a bounce, if not a second wave, come this week. And this is relative to the last 2 weeks where things were decompressing in the emergency room. People are still dying at high rates, but those are the people that have been admitted to the hospital for about 2 to 3 weeks now. It takes usually that long for you to start having symptoms to go into cardiac arrest and then be pronounced dead. And People are still being discharged, but I think the rate of death is much more pertinent to this virus and what we're seeing. And in the emergency room, more non-COVID-19 and complaints are coming in because they waited so long to hold out and they can wait any longer, or people start having cabin fever, or the weather is getting better, a combination of all those things. Can't really make a generalization when it comes to New York City. Everyone has their own reasons. And our job is to simply treat them when they come and clean up the mess or put out the fires if there happens to be another surge, which we do expect. Because once you come to the emergency room, you're likely to have caught COVID-19 simply by just coming. And then so we do expect a lot of these patients to come back 2 to 3 weeks from now.
Can you address the demographics of the patients that you're seeing? We know that we're talking about a disproportionate segment of the population that's coming to the emergency room. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, everyone can get affected by the virus, but not everyone has equal access to healthcare. This was a problem before COVID-19. I mean, I don't know why people are like, oh my God, the healthcare access has been unequal. Why did it take you this long to realize that that was already a problem? Way, 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 way before a pandemic came around. The problem hasn't changed. It's the context that has exacerbated an already existing problem. If you look at all the infection areas, those are usually in neighborhoods that have a lower socioeconomic status or averages, lower access to healthcare, closer to power plants that increases rates of asthma. And because of the socioeconomic averages are much lower, you can expect a family of 10 to be living in a 1 to 2 bedroom apartment where they all share 1 or 2 bathrooms, as opposed to the lower infection rates happen to be in the parts of the city where socioeconomic averages are higher, where people do have space to have 1 bathroom per person, where you have 2 people living in a 2-bedroom apartment, or they have the monies or means for access to a car or a vehicle to leave the city and live in their summer homes or in their 2-floor apartments or 2-floor houses where you can enact social distancing and self-quarantine comfortably. You can't expect that in outer boroughs where so many patients, when you tell them to self-quarantine and one person happens to get it in a family of 10, then the whole family gets, infected. And there's really not their fault. It's just the status of, the way things have been and the unequal access to healthcare that we've all been observing. The hospitals itself in outer boroughs are all fuller than the hospitals in Manhattan.
When we see those images of Elmhurst, especially in the initial days, that's the real epicenter.
Anything that's not Manhattan, Midtown or downtown Manhattan, is an epicenter. And it includes Queens, and in Brooklyn, and the South Bronx, and Staten Island. It's everywhere, and uptown Manhattan.
I don't want to be doing Monday morning quarterbacking here, but what do you think the biggest mistakes have been so far?
We've been through this before. We are a country that eradicated polio and smallpox, or a world that eradicated polio and smallpox, and yet we still debate whether people should get immunized for the measles or or the flu. And I get it. Like, the vaccine argument is, there's a constant internal debate. That's what is the ingenuity of American the pendulum that swings back and forth, where your rights, to be able to vote, whether a person of color or as a woman or disabled or religion or whatever it is, always in response to challenging an already existing law that was wrong, or was wrong at the time. And it's this struggle for progress defines what we are as proud Americans. So as a proud American and a born and raised New Yorker, anything that you tell me to do, I will question. That's the way I was raised. That's all I know. But at the same time, there is that delicate balance between public health and personal freedoms. And while I still maintain that you can do whatever you want, I am not one to tell you what to do, especially in my position. You have to accept the consequences of your actions. So when it comes to preparing for this, human beings have been notoriously horrible at predicting anything. Otherwise, we wouldn't have gotten this mess in the first place. But the least we could have done was to remember and recall that we've been through this before, the 1918 Spanish flu, H1N1. And yet we still say we want the personal freedom to decide what we want to do in the moment. And that's where we are now, where we have to accept the consequences of the actions of the collective, of a whole, of all of us. But what we can do right now is to further minimize that risk, right? Fail to prepare, prepare to fail. I signed up for this, where I will put out the fires and clean up that mess no matter what. But if you want to make my life easier right now, what we can change is preparing for the future, where you can make a decision that's different from the ones that you made in the past to prevent further unnecessary death, to make my life easier so that I don't have to keep coming in, putting out fires, getting myself sick, to the point that my staff will start getting sick, to the point that all of us start getting sick, that nobody will be around to take care of you when it's your turn to get sick.
What are the decisions? How can we help you?
Hashtag I don't know if you can curse on this. Hashtag stay the home. Stay home. Like if somebody watching this right now, if we can convince just one of you to just hold off on coming to the emergency room unnecessarily, just for one more day. Maybe you don't need that work note. Maybe you don't need that med refill. Maybe you can do telemedicine if you have access to a working Wi-Fi connection. Maybe you can convince a family member not to go out. You will have saved countless lives, because let's say somebody with COVID-19 sneezes in your hallway 5 minutes prior without caring to clean themselves up or clean up whatever, and they walk away. We know the virus, once it's aerosolized, can live in the air up to 3 hours. That's just a chance. Then you decide to leave the apartment for your breath of fresh air, which is important. But let's say you take that risk and you inhale that virus in, and then it starts incubating, and then you start spreading it to all the people in the grocery store when you go, next, or you bring it back home to your family, and then you give it to grandma, and then they spread to other people, and they spread to more people. All those people come to the emergency room, and grandma will be on life support because of your risk that you took. I'm not trying to make people feel bad, but just know that every action you take in a time like a pandemic carries potential harm and risk, and you can change a lot of outcomes simply by not doing something as well.
Well, Dr. Soon, thank you for everything that you're doing. You've been amazing, and I'm staying home. I hope our audience will be staying home, and I wish you from the bottom of my heart all the very best. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Dr. Soon says doctors are also devising new ways to prevent unnecessary ventilation intubation, arguing that there are many other treatment options that can be taken instead of jumping to ventilation, which, as we all know, carries significant risk. While Dr. Soon is certainly one of the city's heroes in this pandemic, there are also so many people working behind the scenes to make sure the most vulnerable in our population are taken care of. Niketa Sheth is the CEO of Womankind, which works with survivors of domestic abuse. They run several shelters here in New York City and provide support services to individuals across the 5 boroughs. She joined me this week to talk about the increased risk for women under quarantine.
In times of economic downturn and isolation, we know that cases of domestic abuse do increase. And a nonprofit right here in Manhattan called Womankind is doing everything they can to help victims in need. We have Niketa Sheth, who is the CEO of Womankind, a nonprofit based in Manhattan, who's joining us now to tell us a little bit more about what they're facing and what the community is doing to respond. Thank you, Niketa. What's happening?
Thank you, Allison. We know now that survivors are confined at their homes for longer hours with their abusers, and we recognize the amount of pressure and anxiety that is creating to so many survivors and victims of violence. The numbers can be very confusing. While sometimes we see a rise in numbers and other times we don't, it's really an indication that many of the abuse that is happening continues to be underreported or unknown.
So what are you finding with the cases that are coming to you? When did you have to shut down your Manhattan headquarters? And then what did you do? And where are the women? How are you getting to them?
Yes, so Womankind remains at the front lines. Our staff is continuing to find ways to critically meet the needs of our survivors and the children. So we really are nimble in the way we're continuing to provide support, including phone and virtual counseling sessions. Our helpline is still running 24 hours a day. Our 2 safety homes, our shelters, those are still up and running, and we have over 40 individuals that we are supporting. And so we're continuing to find ways to meet the needs of new survivors as well as existing survivors that we have been supporting.
What is a woman supposed to do when she is faced with this situation? What is your advice if you're in an abusive situation, you're in the home, you're told to stay home, you're in quarantine? What do you do?
That's a great question, Allison. And first, I just want to acknowledge that to be in that situation is incredibly difficult, with an increased level of anxiety and really limited access to what could be a support system for someone who's already been experiencing abuse and violence. The first is really to be able to know that so many people are here for you. And we want to highlight that while we are physically in isolation, that many organizations just like Womankind are here for you. And for those who might have a friend or know of someone who needs help, we encourage you to take a role in listening and being an ear to your friend who might be experiencing violence. We also encourage you to call our helpline or any other helpline that exists across the country, because that helpline is not just for those who are experiencing violence, but also to support family members and friends and help guide them on how to then guide a person in need.
Womankind is formally known as the Asian Women's Center,
That's
and then it became Womankind. So you do have a focus on the Asian American community, correct?
That is correct. Womankind's been around for 38 years and are formerly the New York Asian Women's Center. And Womankind supports all individuals. Our doors are open to all. Yet our expertise continues to be supporting the Asian community. And we're very proud to do that because we ensure that we approach all of our work with cultural humility. Our staff speak 18 different languages and dialects, including Spanish. And it's worth noting, Allison, that approximately 75% of who we serve come from immigrant communities of color. And the average income of those we serve is $15,000 or less. And so, as you could see, the communities we are serving are grappling with heightened fear of anti-Asian racism and limited access to so many more resources and communities. We're aware that communities of color are disproportionately impacted at times like this.
So if someone is in a situation and they call the helpline, and they want to go into some sort of shelter, how do they get out in a situation like this?
We have modified the way that we are guiding our survivors around safety planning. And so the first step I would say is certainly do reach out to our helpline. And also on our website, we have a page just dedicated to safety planning. What we've been doing to help a survivor in that case is thinking about what is going to be an even more time-sensitive way in being able to support a survivor to find safety. And so I will give you an example. If we were to be able to find a spot for an individual and a family member and their children to come to one of our shelters, a staff member would work through a safety plan and coordinate how they might be able to leave their belongings outside of their home and plan to meet them in a location that is safe, and then bring them to our shelter. And so we are here for anyone, and we will walk through the process and support you in any way. So many survivors have lost their jobs, or family members have lost their jobs and are really looking to be able to survive. Many individuals we speak to may not even have enough food for the rest of the week, and they are getting pushed out of their homes by their landlords. So the type of support that we're offering right now, Allison, is of course supporting the needs of survivors who are going through trauma, but it's many of the basic core needs right now.
So if someone does need food, or they're having a problem with shelter, and there is that moratorium on being evicted, you will step in and assist them.
That's right. Womankind has been raising money to provide emergency cash assistance. That's emergency assistance dollars, whether that be for groceries or to help cover rent. And that's really important because we need to be very conscientious of this time and how that might lead and will unfortunately likely lead to an increase in homelessness.
Do you have any last words of advice for people who may suspect that a loved one is in a abusive situation? How can you be helpful?
I would empower anyone in that situation to really be a supportive ear to your friend or loved one, to really be able to listen and believe that individual who's reaching out for help, and to don't hesitate to call our helpline, because the more that you can be educated and the more that you have the resources, you would be able to offer that to your loved one at the appropriate time that they're ready.
Well, thank you for everything that you're doing. Obviously, this is a difficult time for everyone, but especially those victims of domestic violence. And we're here for you, and we want to get your message across. And there are those resources and the website. I am womankind.org. And so if they go to the website, they can get all the information that they need and various resources that you're offering at this time.
That's right. Thank you so much, Allison. I also just want to acknowledge that we really appreciate the opportunity to share this important message at a time like this, and the opportunity that you've offered us.
Well, thank you for everything that you're doing.
Thank you.
Once again, the Womankind hotline is 1-888-888-7702. It's open 24 hours a day, and it is in 18 languages. Well, that's it for this special edition of the Working Woman Report. Please join our community on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, where we hope to bring you the latest information about making it through these trying times. Remember, we're all in this together. Good night.